Like, you working on your schedule for next semester yet? Oh, God.
I like I said, I'm not frustrated because I have what I'm getting what I need, but the rest of you guys, you know, have that want to graduate in spring. It ain't gonna happen if these things aren't offered. And how are you supposed to know what's offered if the schedule don't come out until 2 days before?
Y'all normally talk to them about this before now. What you got on schedule?
How you talking to that guy when you don't know anything about it?
We worked out. Last semester when we like front and saw the schedule, barely moved. Y'all weren't supposed to see that together.
As a college credit course, that is a problem.
Well, colleges do that. Oh, Beckley, how many's there?
Hello.
All of us.
All of us.
All six, good.
Mr. Rasnick.
Hold on a minute, let me turn the volume up a little. Let me turn this air conditioner off, I can't hear. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Do what you gotta do.
Is it a possibility for us to call you later if we need to? We've got some issues going on.
It goes on with more of what we discussed last night in class.
Absolutely. What probably the easiest way is to call me on my cell phone, and I'm happy to give you that number. I gave it out at the beginning of class. Everybody's got it anyway, but you all can call me. But let's plan a time. When would you like to call?
Right after this class, if possible.
Okay, I'm going to need, whenever class is over, I'm going to need, we'll talk about it before we all stand up, or before you all stand up and leave. I need about 12 or 13 minutes to walk back across the campus to my office so I can shut the door and sit down and have a conversation with you without being distracted.
Okay.
If I try to have a conversation with you before I get to my office, chances are I'll have people walk up and have other conversations and I end up getting distracted. So I want to be able to go in there and close the door so we can talk. All right?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
I mean, that one is like the biggest one.
It's offered down there, but not over here.
Probably a year on the rest of it.
Do you need that, Julia? Do you need probation?
Yeah, there's communication in there we're trying to do.
You have to have two sciences. So you're gonna take science and leave off? So you're gonna take it?
All right, folks, I want to start off today, and it took me a minute to get it pulled up, but I want to start off today with a little bit of this video I'm going to put on the screen. I hope it's going to be big enough for you to watch. I've tried to enlarge it to watch it full screen. It acts like it don't want me to do that. It doesn't want to give me permission to do that. It's got a little advertisement in front of it, which is kind of a problem. I'm trying to let it play, and we'll start again. But some of these people you're going to watch here are very anti-terrorist, very anti-government, kind of ignore on terrorism concern.
We're losing you.
From a government standpoint on terrorism. See screen.
We can't hear you.
You can't hear me at all?
No.
How about now?
Yeah.
That microphone's junk. All right, so I'm gonna hit the PC screen, and y'all gonna watch this video for just a minute. I hope there doesn't appear to be any volume on this thing. I hope there's some volume. If there's not, we can't watch it. Which makes it ridiculous.
Hard for the course.
What computer doesn't have volume? That's insane.
It was just after midnight, September 9th, 2001.
Trooper was doing what a trooper would do. Saw a speeder, pulled over the speeder.
The Maryland State Trooper ran the driver's name through the local police database.
He gave him a ticket. The driver, from all accounts, was polite, had...
All right, do what? Probably, which makes absolutely no sense. I can't understand. I absolutely don't understand how you're supposed to teach without any technology. There is no password that you can put in. I'm on it, but the volume won't turn up.
We can hear it down here.
You can hear that?
Yeah.
It started out the trooper doing what he was supposed to be doing.
Right.
At MFS Investment Management, we believe active management can protect capital long term. Active management can tap global insights. Active management can seek to outperform. That's the power of active management.
It was just after midnight, September 9th, 2001.
Trooper was doing what a trooper would do. Saw a speeder, pulled over the speeder.
The Maryland State Trooper ran the driver's name through the local police database.
He gave him a ticket. The driver, from all accounts, was polite, had proper registration, license. And there's nothing that the trooper could have done other than to write the ticket, tell him to have a nice day or have a nice night. That was it.
The driver headed to Newark. He was meeting friends at the airport. His name was Zia Jarrah.
Hi, the captain. I would like to roll the main ticket. We're home aboard and going to back to the airport and we have our demand. Remain quiet.
United Flight 93 crashed near Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
His burned passport was found in the wreckage. Zia Jarrah, his fellow hijackers, 40 passengers and crew were dead. The near miss of Jarrah by that state trooper and near misses of other hijackers caused the government to assemble a massive nationwide surveillance apparatus.
President Bush said to us in the basement of the White House on the night of 9/11, "You have everything you need." And that was true, because as soon as we went to the Congress, they said, "Just tell us what you need. Blank check."
What Congress did, and the American people supported, was turning on the spigot of funding for all the agencies that were involved in counterterrorism.
Right after 9/11, I mean, every agency.
fortify domestic defenses began with creation of the Department of Homeland Security.
Homeland Security is by far the largest merger in government history. There were 17 agencies from multiple departments, Coast Guard, the Secret Service, FEMA, all being fused together into one organization, and all at once.
They broke ground on what will become the home of a mammoth bureaucracy. Its $3.4 billion headquarters will rival the Pentagon as the largest government complex ever built in Washington.
You had something that you should never offer a bureaucracy, which is a candy store without a price tag.
When DHS was first created, official Washington believed 9/11 was a failure of federal intelligence agencies to communicate.
There were something like 30 different agencies that had databases that had information that was not being shared and correlated, was not connecting the dots.
The buzzwords became connecting the dots between federal government agencies and the states. That's why DHS decided to fund fusion centers in the states, a place where intelligence from thousands of local police forces and federal government databases could be brought together and analyzed.
You need to get information, you need to get it fast, you need to have it analyzed properly and disseminated properly.
DHS has funded 72 fusion centers across the nation. Maryland, the state where Zia Jarrah slipped through the net, built one of the first.
These fusion centers are very, very important entities for that information sharing between federal government, state government, local government.
The more we collaborate and cooperate, I think the better chance we have of preventing another September 11, 2001 from occurring.
So the Homeland Security Department funded intelligence fusion centers in every state.
We have roughly 80 personnel representing 30 different law enforcement agencies and public health agencies, including the FBI.
Contractors went in, put in the large flat screen TVs, put in the mission control to the moon kind of facilities.
So far, DHS has spent more than $420 million on the nation's fusion centers.
How much?
The idea is built around cops on the beat. They are supposed to feed the system intelligence about possible terrorists.
You want to get as much information from that trooper into the system, into the state system and into the federal system, so that those euphemistic dots can be connected.
But almost right away, the imperative to gather as much information as possible got the state police in Maryland in trouble. Looking for suspicious characters, undercover officers infiltrated anti-war and anti-death penalty groups that sometimes met here.
They're trying to bring together the anti-war movement and the climate chaos people, because the Pentagon is #1 at destroying this Mother Earth.
Max Obuchevsky was one of the targets of the operation.
Max was well known to law enforcement. Max enjoyed being well known to law enforcement, in my opinion, because he was confrontational.
Before long, the police had gathered data on 53 protesters. It made its way to a database in Washington.
We were described as possible terrorists, that they're very, very concerned about, which is absurd on many levels, to say the least.
The term terrorist is just one of the most detrimental words that could ever be applied to anyone. You know that.
And you don't know where your name might appear, where
Some of the so-called terrorists were actually Catholic nuns.
And I think there's a big difference, at least in my mind, between being considered a person who's nonviolent and a terrorist.
Their files were now accessible to state and federal officials.
Officers in this country comes across something suspicious related to homeland security, to terrorism, they'll fill this information out.
Local police are being told to look out for suspicious behavior around public facilities, picture taking, map drawing, evasive driving.
I think anytime we have activity and photographs of those sorts of facilities, and it comes to our attention, we need to ask the questions why, or look at who's taking the pictures to find out something about them.
But even that simple instruction can get local police in trouble.
A gentleman who was photographing an Amtrak train was arrested by Amtrak police and handcuffed and detained because they thought this behavior was suspicious.
It was an Amtrak-sponsored photography contest.
So this information, again, completely innocuous, deserved no police attention, is now being put on a report deemed suspicious activity and forwarded on to the intelligence community.
Inevitably, there have been cases of abuse, but experienced anti-terror practitioners say it's too late to stop the information-gathering juggernaut.
Limiting information access is a task that's not going to happen. In age of information explosion, forget about it. People say you're keeping records on X, Y, and Z. I'll say, hey, get on Google Maps, get on Google Earth, get into commercial software that looks at how to investigate somebody's telephone number. You got to be kidding me.
That's the great American conundrum, isn't it? I mean, our freedom as individuals, our freedom of movement are the very things that are most vulnerable to terror attacks, and also, sadly, are most vulnerable to our own systems of government turning on those things and doing more harm than the terrorists do in their attacks.
Meanwhile, the federal government continues to spend billions of dollars for states to gather more information. In Maryland, they've even started taking pictures of license plates.
What are we doing here? The system we're using has 2 cameras. It's constantly taking pictures, observing the tags, allowing the system to record them, and check them against the database.
Suspended or revoked registration.
This technology, used by U.S. military forces on the streets of Baghdad, has migrated to the streets of Baltimore.
With the license plate reader system, if we're to get that information, we can then go into the system and see where else this car has been.
The software with the system, when it sees what it thinks is a license plate, it will read it using OCR, optical character recognition, and make a cross-check against a database we are running.
Surveillance cameras at vital institutions are also photographing license plates and adding them to the database.
Maybe nobody called it in when they were at Fort Detrick or Aberdeen Proving Ground or at Bolling Air Force Base. But the license plate readers will tell us they were there and when they were there and when they passed through. That's a pattern. That's something we'd want to know about.
And they've gone one step further. Smile. Cameras are everywhere.
We are very big on CCTV. We believe that it is a force multiplier, that it is an effective way not only to provide greater security in open spaces, evidence Times Square, but also it's a much more effective way to guard approaches to tunnels, bridges, and other sorts of static targets.
Maryland, like most states, has gotten very good at following the money from DHS. Money to equip local police with the latest technology. Much of it imported from the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan. Here at a sales fair in Phoenix, American companies have rushed into the information-gathering bonanza.
It's called microfacial expressions. We use it to help the soldiers, the troops on the ground in Afghanistan and Iraq, to tell if the individual is trying to hide something.
The new gold rush has attracted some familiar names: General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, and some newcomers.
We can take massive stores of pre-recorded video, whether it be facial, aerial, in this context, anything related to vehicles, and extract those objects and understand the nature and behavior of those objects and update a Sybase IQ system with the high-level results.
This is all part of that massive new organization, Top Secret America, that the government has been constructing since 9/11.
At MFS Investment Management, we believe active management can protect capital long term. Active management can tap global insights. Active management can take calculated risks. Active management can seek to outperform. Because active investment management isn't reactive, it's active. That's the power of active management.
Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah.
2 years ago, with her fellow reporter Bill Arkin, Priest began to focus on Top Secret America as it grew and spread.
What's this one? Here's all of General Dynamics in the country.
Oh my goodness.
And hundreds of those buildings were hiding in plain sight, in office parks like this.
And this is a gate to the NSA?
Yeah, there's a government facility back in there. You'll see it better after we turn down this road. Obviously, I can't go that way.
Inside these buildings, nearly 1 million Americans are fighting what has been called the global war on terror.
You've got Titan in here. CSC is in one of these buildings. General Dynamics security station here at the front where they check out the cars and look underneath.
Yeah, so maybe you should put the camera down now.
You just never know who's watching over here.
Slowly, they discovered a hidden world of military, government, and private corporations.
All right, so can we just go over what you have?
Sure. This is the pictures that I went up to that credit union place.
Mm-hmm.
They documented the incredible building boom all around Washington.
Had it not been for the leaves off the trees and at night, you would never see this thing.
And yet it's gigantic.
Yeah.
For the rest of my life, I will never see the world the same way again, especially around Washington. These buildings that they might only be 4 stories high, but they go down 10 stories. And there's a whole world down there, like shops and places to eat that you don't know about. That's just for them.
This is a world so secretive, so large and unwieldy, that no one knows how much it costs, or everything it does.
I could not possibly claim that I knew everything that was going on. I think someone said that only God knows all the special access programs. I think that's true. Is that a good thing? Probably not. Can we avoid it? Probably not.
4-star General Michael Hayden ran the National Security Agency and then the CIA. But even he didn't know the scope and size of secret programs inside Top Secret America.
I was in government service for 40 years. Most of that was in intelligence. I would never claim to you that I knew all the compartments.
And no one seems to know what it all really costs.
You have a Congress does not doing its job on oversight and recognizes it's not doing it, calls it dysfunctional. So who's making the decisions? And where are they being made? Well, they're being made in the 17 different intelligence agencies. And nobody's in overall charge. So naturally you're going to get bloated budgets. Naturally you're going to get duplication.
It's a story only just beginning to be understood. A story about the price of security and whether all those tens of billions of dollars are actually making us safer.
You can look, if you're objective, at all of this money and all of this effort and say, what would have happened if we hadn't done that? And in almost every case, nothing would have happened. It's true that there hasn't been another attack. It's not true that all of this expenditure and all of these people have stopped it.
The terror threat in this country is
trying
coming
to set off
from
a bomb at a Christmas tree lighting ceremony. Arrested by federal agents this morning after attempting to
But what about all those publicized cases that sounded like successes?
The guy who tried to blow up more than 250 fellow. What exactly went wrong?
Just a year ago, at Christmas, the underwear bomber, who somehow evaded the security net despite numerous intelligence red flags, and a father who warned the CIA his son might be a threat.
More questions than answers today.
There were no red flags raised.
He actually got to the point of triggering the device, which means at that point the only thing that's going to stop that is what happened, is a technical failure or maybe a human failure.
What we found out from the Christmas Day bombing attempt was that because the Nigerian guy's name was misspelled by one letter, he did not pop up. The little bits of data about him were not correlated. Those dots were not connected.
Google does it. If you mistype something on Google, it says, "Did you mean this?" Despite spending all the billions of dollars on databases, that simple spell check, "Did you mean this?" kind of software wasn't operating.
And then, 5 months later, there was the Times Square bomber.
Be assured that the FBI and their partners in this process have all the tools and experience they need.
The Times Square bomber was a horrendously run operation. A bunch of vendors in Times Square said to the cops, "There's a problem with this car."
Both those cases, it was not the intelligence agencies, it was private citizens. On the plane, it was a private citizen who jumped the guy. Times Square, it was a vendor saying something's wrong there, letting law enforcement authorities know it. So we were lucky, and because we have an alert citizenry.
The FBI says it's taken down a homegrown radical.
Here in Baltimore, a man apparently tried to blow up a military recruitment center in Cape.
And then there's this case that happened just recently in Maryland.
Trying to detonate what he thought was a bomb.
He proceeded to drive the SUV as planned to the recruiting center, where he parked it in front of the building.
An undercover FBI agent had given the suspect an inert bomb.
He had a detonation device, which he was to key. However, when he keyed it, it didn't work.
He was immediately placed under arrest at that time.
And once again, the suspect, 21-year-old Antonio Martinez, had been discovered by an alert citizen reading Facebook. The source called the FBI in Baltimore.
I'm trying to think of any other technology that would have helped in this case.
This was good old-fashioned police work by a lot of different police agencies coming together.
Okay, so not so heavy on the technology.
That's correct.
The Fusion Center's new technology was not involved, nor were the CCTV or license plate cameras. There was no SAR report.
3 to go.
So what I wanted you to get out of that was when we start talking about a lot of the intel that they're gathering, even with the advances that they've made, there's still the argument out there that they're not doing enough, that their technology is not enough, that they've not reached enough. However, there's two things I want to talk to you today about was the homegrown terrorist and weapons of mass destruction. The other piece in there that I wanted you to pay attention to was how much time and energy and technology they've spent on working on domestic terrorism in this country with the license plate readers and all of the information gathering. And where did they say that they concentrated the information gathering from? Where did it start? Local police. Local police was the cornerstone of their information gathering. And they gather that information, and still it's not foolproof. Still, incidences like the Christmas Eve underwear bomber can still happen. The thing that saves that situation was that he had a technical difficulty and the underwear didn't go off like he anticipated and so on. So they put in all of these video cameras. What was it that Governor O'Malley said about the video cameras and static targets? What did he say? It did what to them? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Governor O'Malley said that those video cameras hardened static targets like tunnels and bridges. Right? It didn't make them impenetrable, but it helped to harden them. So we understand all of that, and we know how that's working. Our homegrown terrorists are divided into two groups according to the Anti-Terrorist Division. What do you think those two groups are? Yeah, I like where you're going. I was thinking about categories, but what makes these people so hard to catch is they tend to all be lone wolves. They tend to separate themselves from a bigger organization, which makes them harder to find. So I like where you're going, and I like what you're thinking, because that's where I'm going. But we separate them into two major groups, and one of them is jihadists, and the other one is right-wing extremists. Those are our two groups. Now, what happens with your active terrorist is they tend to be, like he said a minute ago, they tend to be very lone wolf. They tend to separate themselves from the bigger group. Our San Bernardino jihadists, when they really got to digging into their information, they found ties back to Al-Qaeda, back to ISIL. But they were not necessarily running around with the ISIL flag in the back of their pickup truck hollering, woohoo, you didn't see that, it wasn't obvious. They really had to dig. So they are very much lone wolves, and that is the element that makes them very hard to catch, even with our technology. Thank you for getting my jacket. You're the only one that does. So the next piece, or the final piece that I want to talk about today before we review for the test is this. Weapons of mass destruction. The federal government has devised a weapons of mass destruction response for domestic and worldwide bombs. A weapon of mass destruction includes biological, chemical, radiological, nuclear, and some conventional bombs if they are large enough. So what's a dirty bomb?
Radiation.
Radiation. You hear that talked about on TV, but you don't hear a lot about it. But that is considered, other than they use the term dirty bomb all the time, that is a weapon of mass destruction because it is a radiological warhead. There are, in the United States, a weapon of mass destruction coordinator in all 56 area offices. You know, they talk about those fusion centers. Those fusion centers are coupled with the anti-terrorism centers. They're all right there together. There are 56 of them in the United States, which means there's one in every state plus a couple. And every one of those area offices has a WMD coordinator. Every one of them. All 56 offices have their own weapons of mass destruction coordinator. Now that person has an interesting job. In their area of control, their first responsibility is to analyze the goings on, and if there is an event that happens, they are to analyze that event and decide quickly if it is a weapon of mass destruction or not. For example, you have a gas tanker at Bristol. That gas tanker has an accident, hits a bridge. It explodes. Kills 9 people. It's that person's job, is that weapon of mass destruction person's job to evaluate that situation, gather the information from local law enforcement, and to decide if it truly was an automobile accident or if it was an act of terrorism. Was it a bomb? Could it have been a dirty bomb? What was the situation there that caused that to explode? In the event he decides that it was a weapon of mass destruction, he does about 5 or 6 things. Are y'all ready? The first thing he does is he alerts the FBI about the event. That's the first thing he does. Hey, you all, I think we've got a WMD in Bristol, Tennessee. When he does that, that triggers a response team's departure to the scene. An initial response team departs and goes to the scene. To assess that situation. That is their sole job. To assess and gather evidence. They also give information back to the W&D coordinator, telling him what assets he needs to deploy. Does he need to send out a chemical team, a biological team? These folks are really getting to work out in Syria, because what was the Syrian government doing for a long time? They were using chemical weapons. Each WMD coordinator has a disaster squad. A disaster squad. Inside of that disaster squad, this disaster squad has about 5 or 6 duties. Well, it's 4 actually. A disaster squad has 4 duties. First thing this disaster squad does is identifies the victims. Which sounds like an easy chore, but I'm sure it's not. Second, investigate the scene. Investigate the scene. Third, collect evidence. And lastly, photograph and document the scene. Photograph and document the scene. The W&D coordinator also has a hazardous materials response team. He has an explosives team. And a chemical and biological services team. Obviously, those are highly specialized folks who are going to respond to the situation. And you're not going to send all of those if they're not needed. If it's a biological situation, you send a biological team. Yes?
Who's the first one?
Yes, hazardous materials team. A hazardous materials team, an explosive team, and a chemical and biological team. You're going to send the appropriate team to basically the reports that you're getting back from your assessment team, right? The evidence that's gathered is then put together for criminal prosecution, whether it happens in this country or it happens abroad. These teams were vital in determining who was using the chemical weapons in Syria when thousands upon tens of thousands of individuals were being killed in Syria using what was first determined to be mustard gas. It was later determined that they were using sarin gas and Clorox. Sarin gas and Clorox kill those folks. And the sarin gas is not quite as deadly. The sarin gas mixed with Clorox is very deadly. Of course, the Clorox is pretty easy to get. So. All right, let's review for a test. We will test on Tuesday. All right, Beckley, y'all can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. The definition of terrorism is? Don't everybody tell me at once.
Anything that causes fear or terror. It's a tactic and strategy. It's a crime used by the weaker of two opposing forces, it relies on its course of power, and it's difficult to defend.
Wow, good, great. There'll be 2 or 3 questions about that. Terrorist behavior. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. What are they?
Hold on. So there's how many?
6.
I'm sorry, there's about 7 of them. Their behavior is based on political ideology, right?
Oh, yeah.
Psychological. They're coercive. They're dynamic. They're very deliberate and planned. And they love to exploit the media. What's the difference between an insurgent and a terrorist?
An insurgent is a political fighter with a specific aim. Its goal is to challenge the existing government for control. A terrorist doesn't challenge the government directly. They attempt to challenge the legitimacy of the government itself.
Great. Good. Did y'all hear that here? Yep. All right, good deal. What is state terrorism?
When government uses terrorism against its own people.
Right. For example, Saddam Hussein used a WMD and killed tens of thousands of Kurds. He was a Sunni, and the Kurds were more numerous than the Sunnis were, and so he had to keep them in fear. So he was constantly doing something to them. And one of the last things he did was he dropped a chemical bomb on them and killed tens of thousands of Kurds up in kind of the northern part of Iraq. State-sponsored terrorism.
The government provides training money or supplies to a terrorist group.
Good. State-sponsored terrorism is Iran, Iraq, Pakistan. State involvement in terror.
Where one government commits active terrorism on another government or a private group.
Good. And the biggest example I can give you of that is Iran. Not only are they a sponsor of terrorism, and a training ground, but they also will send people to commit acts of terrorism. Their favorite target is Israel. Bless you. There are a bunch of reasons why terrorist groups commit acts of violence. Somebody tell me what some of those are.
To spread fear.
Gain recognition. Steal or extort money and equipment.
Discourage foreign investments in tourism. Influence government decisions. Free prisoners. Satisfy vengeance.
Turn it into like a guerrilla warfare or something.
Good. Free political prisoners. There will be several questions along those lines. I will word them differently. Some of them will be true, false. Some of them will be multiple choice. But there'll be 4 or 5 questions in that little piece right there, okay? National Counterterrorism Center. Who is it a partnership between? Good. It's CIA, FBI, DOJ, DOD, and Homeland Security. The National Counterterrorism Center has 5 goals. What are they?
Identify known and possible terrorists. Identify and categorize terrorist groups.
Good.
Identify and disseminate about terrorist capabilities. Identify plans and ideologies of terrorists. And identify emerging threats both home and abroad.
Great. Good job. The National Counterterrorism Center has a huge job of analysis. They analyze assets, people, intelligence, equipment, operations, and they issue what to travelers and people traveling abroad?
Alerts. Warnings, alerts.
Good.
Advisories.
Warnings and advisories. The words you need to use is instead of alerts is warnings and advisories. All right. The National Crime Terrorism Center operates a secure website. The secure website provides what? To whom?
Intelligence dissemination to people that need it.
Law enforcement officials.
It's intelligence dissemination. That's good. To whom?
Whatever agencies may need it.
All right. The answer I'm going to be looking for on that is federal, state, and local criminal justice. Federal, state, and local criminal justice agencies. That'll be the answer I'm looking for on that question. All right. How many joint task force are there in Operation Worldwide right now?
Over
4.
Yeah, here's the magic word. And I know we talked about it. At least 104. They won't tell us exactly how many there are, but we know there are at least 104 going on. So when you read that word, when you read that question, know that I may say, you know, at least or about, and it's not a trick question. We don't know how many over 104 there are, but there are at least 104. All right? Those joint task force may very well provide support for military operations in the form of what? Hardware and technology. Cell phones, satellite imagery, drones. What is Operation Tripwire?
Intelligence gathering and sharing.
Good. Did y'all hear that here? It is the largest intelligence gathering operation going on right now. It's called Operation Tripwire. What is a strategic operations center?
Global command centers that operate 24/7. They support multiple operations. They sustain an uninterrupted power supply. So no matter if the power goes out, they constantly have it.
Great. You covered both my questions. My next question was going to be, why do they have an uninterrupted power supply? They have an uninterrupted power supply so that they can maintain that tactical support regardless of the environment, right? Great. Good job. I told you our anti-terrorism center focuses on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things. What are they?
Borders and ports, colleges, universities, our food supply, human rights, like special events, such as I think you gave examples like the Macy's Day Parade.
Right. And or Super Bowl or NBA playoffs, anything like that. Right.
They focus on the traveling public, and they concentrate on military overseas.
Good. U.S. troops overseas. Great. Excellent job, by the way, young lady. You take good notes.
Thank you.
If I were to ask you to list me 3 of the 5 countries I told you that were actively involved in terrorism right now, list me 3 of them, anybody? Pakistan, Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, Iran. Great. Yeah, all of the Middle East, East Africa, Northwest Africa. What country in Southeast Asia is involved?
Somalia.
Well, you got Somalia, but I was thinking of another one. Actually, I guess it might even be Northeast Asia. I was thinking of North Korea. Yeah, that little fellow won't quit.
Every time you turn around, you hear about him.
All right.
What is the noise we're hearing?
I don't hear anything. Do you still hear it?
Yeah, we're getting a lot of feedback.
You think that? You hear this?
No, it gets worse when we talk.
Let me turn the volume down a little more. Man, you freaked me out. Stop. Yeah, it might have been where I turned the volume up real loud for that TV show. Is that any better?
Not really.
Could be our lights buzzing. I don't know.
No, it's
North Korea. All right. Our counterterrorism goals, there are 5 of them. Somebody tell me what those are. Accountable governance.
Respect for human rights.
Respect for human rights.
Respect for civil rights.
Respect for civil rights.
Balancing security and transparency.
Balancing security and transparency.
Upholding the rule of law.
And upholding the rule of law. Excellent. Excellent. There'll be a couple of questions come out of there. Why is it important to build security partners? I told you all they're building these security partners because they're trying to do what?
Get rid of silos.
You get rid of silos. You're absolutely right.
Share information.
Share information, and what I tell you about trying to fight terrorism using the local assets does what for the American government? It does present it as a hardened target, and it saves us money, right? We're not taking ownership of all of the terrorism fighting all over the world. I told you there were 12 overreaching goals.
Protect the homeland.
Absolutely. Keep going.
Protect American people both home and abroad. Protect American interests like our oil. Disrupt the terrorist activities. Degrade their capabilities. Ultimately to defeat terrorist operations. Prevent terrorist development. Prevent the acquisition of weapons of mass destruction. Eliminate their safe houses. Foster permanent partnerships. Create a counter to ISIS ideology, and deprive terrorists of any enabling means.
Great. There'll be about 4 or 5 questions there. List for me, I listed you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I listed for you 5 names of terrorist groups that are currently on the list of active terrorist groups that the Counterterrorism Center has. List for me any 3 of them.
Hamas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda,
Hezbollah. Good. You have the Armed Forces of Colombia. Great. How many WMD coordinators are there? 56. How much money did your video say that the U.S. government had spent on
420 million
measures? 400 million. What did the former Governor O'Malley of Maryland say about video cameras? Smile, they're everywhere. That's right. But what did he say about them being around bridges and tunnels? He said that did what?
Made them hard targets.
Made them hard. Good. The W&D coordinator, he has 4 or 5 teams that he can call out. What are those teams?
Disaster, hazardous material team, explosive team,
Good. He is a disaster, a hazardous, an explosive, and a chemical and bio team. His first team would be his what? No, it's before disaster. Assessment team. It's his assessment team. Remember, that's the first thing. That's the first team he calls out. Homegrown terrorists are divided into how many groups? Two. And what are they called? Jihadists and
Right-wing extremists.
Right-wing extremists. Good. All right. I think you all are ready for a test on Tuesday. It's been a couple weeks since we had a test. Any questions on the test?
No.
No.
It will be multiple choice and true false. Except for you, sir, and they'll be filling in the blank for you. Except for you, and they'll be filling in the blank for you. Oh, yeah. By the way, hold on a minute, y'all, before you go. Y'all sit back down. Let me talk to people in Beckley so they can see me. I about forgot that. Thank you. Folks in Beckley, I want to invite you all down to be a part of this too. I hope you can come. This will be really, really nice. April the 15th at 9 o'clock, we are going to go as a class on my police operations class, but I want to invite all of you all to come too. Any of you who want to come. Police operations is going to go tour Bluefield Police Department, Bluefield City Jail. Then we're going to dismantle a police car and talk about we're not going to dismantle it, but we're going to look at it and talk about what's in it and talk about why it's there. And then we're going to analyze a police supervisor car and talk about why it's there. And then we're going to dissect everything on the duty belt that the officer's carrying and talk about why he carries it, what it's used for. Then we'll break. We'll go eat lunch. And about 3:15 or 3:30, we're going to go to the firing range for the Bluefield City Police Department. We can't go till school's out, and school's out, and it's not out till 3. So about 3:15, we'll all go to the firing range, and he is going to have for us AR-15. Y'all help me. AR-15. MP5. A Glock. 45. And something, a 9mm of some sort. And
9mm bullets.
you will be able to shoot these weapons. If you want to shoot them a lot, you will have to buy and bring your own ammo. The ammo is 9mm and 223.
No aluminum casings.
You cannot buy aluminum casings for the 223.
He said he'd supply the 9mm. It's 45.
It's 45s he needs. Okay.
Yeah.
So what you would need to buy is the 45 ammunition and the 223 for the AR-15. Oh, also he will have some hearing protection and some eye protection. But if you are going to come, please bring your own hearing and eye protection for the firing range. I'm a little weird about wearing somebody else's, goggles and stuff.
Earmuffs.
I hope that you are welcome. I would love for you all to come down on the 15th. Please make plans. It'll be an all-day thing.
Can we bring our own firearms?
Say what?
Can we bring our own firearms?
I will have to ask him to be sure. I'll let you know. I'll ask him.
My guns.
I'll get back to you.
Mine's nicer than hers.
My goodness. All right.
I would say they let me. Backboard, they kind of didn't get me.
I bet not.
No, well, I brought some little hole thing that usually stops.
Traffic.
You're gonna tell me.
Your best bet is to take a picture of hers. She does much. You can't read my writing. You're happy to take a picture of mine, but you won't be able to read it. My penmanship, I use a lot of shorthand. Well, but I use a lot of shorthand stuff, and it's terrible. Take a picture of hers. Hers is better than mine. You like hers better. I promise.
I want extra points on my test because that's my 41st birthday.
Cost you $2.
Hey, Beckley, you all have my phone number?
Yes.
All right, give me,
No, he's got the regular.
it's 12 o'clock now, give me till 12:15 to get back to my office. Call my phone number, I'll be in there with the door shut, we'll talk.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that's just like the,
No, I
a heavy
Come on.
receiver, you can pull.
I ain't never been mean to you in your life.
40. 42. 3, same.
Yeah, I figured out this morning, at 4 o'clock this morning, I had half.
It can't get any worse. It does. Every single time.
So now I've had 12 hours sleep since Monday. I took a 2.5 hour nap. If Tuesdays would be here.
I've also got things, I've also got auto kits, but I don't put them in.
Your DOJ, your ECTC, all that's gonna be on there. He always sends everybody to me for notes, Mayor Bremer one. Let's go home, let's do work papers so that I can come to class this evening. I almost, yeah. By last night, I pretty much decided if I didn't get that done, he could take